You were made for a reason. You were shaped for a reason. Everything, the things that make you, they factor into why you are here. And so the purpose equation, here it is. Okay, if you're taking notes, this is the time. It's strengths plus passion multiplied by action equals purpose. Okay?
All right.
What that means is, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast with the usual cast. We got Pastor Rodney Kim.
How y'all doing?
And then we got Coach Mike.
Yes, sir.
Today on this episode, the subject that we're about to talk about is something that if you understand it, if you get it right, if you make sure that it's always in your mind when you're going about your daily processes, or when you go about planning things, when you set goals, in relationships and every other area of life, if you get this right, if you understand this, it's going to make you live a life that's more fulfilled. It's going to make you happier. And it's going to make sure that everything is in perfect alignment with not only what your goals are, but make sure that those goals that you have are in alignment with God's will. And so let's open it up. First, I want to start by asking the fellas, what do we think? We're going to drop a big one first. How was someone, if they haven't figured it out yet, or what is your thoughts behind purpose?
Mm-hmm. You want to go first, Mike? You're going to hit that one.
You go ahead.
All right.
First the back.
Since you do that big one out there. So purpose.
Yeah.
I'm glad we have this conversation because too often we just go along life not knowing where we're going. And to me, purpose is like, hey, what am I here for? What am I supposed to be doing? And I don't care how big or small the thing is. It's like if I go to the grocery store and I'm just walking to the grocery store and I have no purpose, I'm just buying stuff because it looks good to me at the moment. So I'm filling my cart up full of all this stuff, but I haven't figured out what I'm going to cook. Mm-hmm. It's like going, not knowing what you want to cook for that day, but you buying all this stuff and you might not have none of the ingredients you need.
Right.
So a purpose to me is like, I know I want to cook this tonight and I need these ingredients to do it. So I have a purpose.
And I think that's a great point. I've always heard the saying, like, never go grocery shopping on an empty stomach, right? Mm-hmm. Because you'll end up just kind of wandering around. Anything you see, oh, cookies look good right now. Mm-hmm. Ice cream looks good. You're just in there, you're buying things that you really don't need because you weren't specific and intentional about your trip and what you needed to gather on your trip. And I think that correlates to how a lot of people live their lives. You know, you wake up one day and you look back and say, man, like, how did I get here? Mm-hmm. And you really, you can actually see the steps that took place to get where you're at, but you realize you weren't being proactive and you didn't direct yourself to where you wanted to be, and life just ended up resulting in whatever, mm-hmm. came.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the response that you got, and I like the analogy about the grocery store. I was talking to my students, so film class Thursdays, I was talking to the students, we're doing like this series of what they didn't teach me in school. Like that's what we're talking about for the next 4 weeks of this class. And today, I always like to start it off, it's a series, I started off with a discussion about purpose because, my first question to the class is, okay, what is your definition of success? Mm-hmm. There's one student who's gonna say like, oh, success is when I reach my goal. Success is when I've got enough money to pay my bills and I can live a life that I'm comfortable with. Someone else will say, success is a big achievement. I would say, and then if you point out somebody who's successful, they'll say like a movie star, they'll say a CEO or whoever. And then we come back through other questions and try to really break down, okay, what is successful? And the way that I see it is like, you can't be successful without having a purpose. So it's like, if I get a doorknob, right? Mm-hmm. If the doorknob is put in the middle of the floor, can it possibly be successful? It was created to open a door. And so if it's on the floor, it can't do what it was created for.
No.
And so the purpose of it is to open the door. And for everything else, every camera, every water bottle, every table, there was an intention for it being created. And that's no different from us, right? And so you only are successful when you do the thing that you were created to do. Wow. And so that's the beginning.
That's so interesting because as you were talking, I was just thinking about myself when I was young. And then I think about like my kids or other kids that I watched. And the challenging part to me is the fact that a lot of times your true purpose isn't just outright revealed to you. It takes you going down these different paths to realize another clue as to what your true purpose is. And sometimes you have to go through defeats, you have to go through tough times, and we may not understand why, and that's where I think it's so important that we as a village have to surround our kids and let them know, like, it's okay. This is a part of the plan. Okay? Like you're supposed to be going through this. This is how you learn. And I think going back to your analogy about what school does not teach us is one of the main things that I realized in school is they penalize you for making mistakes. You get wrong answers on the test, they penalize you. I had an example of like my son recently where his teacher was using recess as a penalty. If you don't get your work done in S amount of time, then you don't get to go to play. So after I started talking to him, I started realizing for him to not get that penalty of missing recess and watching his friends, he would try to rush through his work and just get done. Kind of like what you said, putting a door knob in the middle of the floor. Like, well, I did it, it's done, but it's not done right.
Yeah.
And it's like, so my thing is, I had to actually talk to his teacher and I was like, listen, I think this is counterproductive because this is not what we want to teach him. We don't want to, I don't want to teach my son that mistakes are forbidden. That's how you learn. You get real world experience and we talk about it. You learn to deal with it and you make an adjustment. Yeah. How else are you going to learn? Because otherwise you just learn to escape the steps that it takes to getting somewhere.
Yeah, and listen to what you're saying about your son. That example is what the teacher created was that she made his purpose to just complete the work.
Just be done, yep.
And really his goal was to get to recess instead of having that conversation about, so he readjusted everything to reach that goal. You know what I'm saying? So she made him she motivated him, but with the wrong thing. Instead of, hey, purpose is to learn a lesson. I think that's what you're saying. Learn is make a mistake. Hey, so be it. You're going to learn from that. And so he reshifted and he got misguided or misdirected. I
think one of the biggest things that I see like in the school environment is they really are training the majority of kids to just be employees or kind of a part of the sheep mentality. They're not really training leaders because if you color outside of the lines, that's wrong. That's not what we told you to do. But, go ahead, get a kid a little bit of leeway. You never know.
Well, let me say one thing, Mike. You saved us when we were talking about, single mothers and all that. I'm going to save you a little bit with teachers. I know what you're saying. So teachers, y'all do a great job. Y'all do
we love the teachers.
We love the teachers. We love the teachers. Yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying. It's like, it's that whole thing, being able to spend time with the whoever, the boy or girl, to actually know what they need to learn, how they learn, and not put them in that box where they might be artists. They might be, art, hey, they love to draw and all that, and you're trying to make them do math the way everybody else do math, and they don't see it that way.
And to me, like you said, we love the teachers. So it's not about the actual teachers. It's more so about the system.
Yes. Okay.
The system that's in place is where everybody sit down, listen to me. I'm going to show you exactly what to do, and you better do it exactly the way I told you to do it. That's more so what I'm just kind of.
So you go ahead.
Because the leader is more so concerned about the result. And so in school, you just try, like with your example right there, what they're trying to do and like how it kind of motivated your son. It's like, he's just trying to get it done, but he's missing the point of it.
Yeah,
right? Because if he studies the stuff and actually consumes the information, he'll be better off. But he doesn't understand that he's a kid. That's for the adults in the schools to figure out.
Yeah.
And so, no, I think that's perfect. My question for you guys though, and I think you've got something here for sure, is do you feel like purpose is a destination, or do you feel like it's more of a road?
Wow.
I would say it's the journey, to be honest. And the reason why I say that is I'm just a very firm believer, because I go back on my personal life, and then I look at other people's life that I would deem successful. And when I say success, it's not necessarily the measure of the public, what the public views as success, but success being they're happy in their life, they have a faith base, and they just fulfill in what they do. Their purpose has always come from a series of events. It's never that ultimate goal that we thought we were going towards. It was the process of going daily and just walking down the road and just taking it step by step and just being committed to doing something, pursuing something.
No, I get it. And I agree with everything you said too. And just thinking about that, I think about reflecting on my own life, right? I know, and I knew at an early age, I liked helping people.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one of the purposes of my life. But then as talking about the journey, as life go on, I was able to help people in a different way. At first I thought, hey, I want to be a professor. I didn't see no black professors, in my school. And I was like, hey, when I get to a certain age, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna be a professor. Well, God had a different plan. But the point was like, hey, started working with the young boys at the church I was at before. So that became a purpose, helping them. Then got called to the ministry, and then the purpose evolves into, okay, it's still helping people,
but it's grown and it continues to grow. So to your point about the journey, we start out, even at a young age, probably have a purpose, but once you kind of get a feel for what your purpose is, it should expand and grow. Like both of y'all, the businesses that we all are in, it should grow. It should never just stay in this one place. It needs, when we go down the road, that purpose should be the same purpose, but it should grow.
And I think that goes along with being fruitful and multiplying what we're doing.
Yeah. No, so that's exactly where I was going to go with it, because on my side, if I'm answering that question that I asked you guys, I definitely think it's a road. And I think that's why productivity is so important, because they go hand in hand. So say, for example, we took Jesus' life, right? You could say, some would say, oh, well, his purpose was to die and be resurrected for our sins. But what about his relationship to the disciples? What about everything that he did that teaches us how we should live before that point? Like, that was the climax of the story, but everything that led up to that was also a part of his reason for being on this planet.
Yes.
So how could I say that was the purpose? So therefore, was he unsuccessful all the way up until then? Because would he just had to have died when he got to the world? That doesn't make sense.
No.
And so, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, to your point, if he didn't have each of those moments to show how he lived along his journey, his death wouldn't have been as meaningful.
Exactly.
And that's the reason why people say, what's that phrase? You live, you only die once, or you only
YOLO?
Yeah,
You only live once.
You only live once. That's what it is. YOLO. You only live once, but the reality is, no, you only die once. We live every day. And that's
Facts.
the thing is, we have to keep that very close, because, we just take it for granted, man.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't help it. It's like, it's the humanness. And as you wake up, you assume you're going to wake up tomorrow. Assume everything's going to be okay. Assume your loved one's going to wake up tomorrow. It is not until something catastrophic happens to where we're like, man, life is so precious.
It is.
And instead of us waiting for a catastrophic moment, we need to work towards just living every day.
Yeah.
And just really loving the people that you love, telling people how you feel about them in the moment. Don't wait for their birthday or a special occasion, just you think about somebody, just call them.
Yep.
Shoot them a text, however you express yourself.
True.
And so I think if we're going deeper into how someone can find their purpose and understanding when you are actually, if we're calling the road, knowing how you're on that road, I think you have to understand that if we're going back to the doorknob, right? It was created for a specific reason. That means that it was shaped in a certain way so that your hand could grab it. It's not going to be as big as a car because it'd be too big. You couldn't open anything.
Yeah.
And it also wouldn't hang on a door.
Correct. Correct.
Two
Correct.
blatant facts right there. So it was shaped in a way that it could actually serve the purpose for which it was created.
Correct.
And I think, again, that's the same way with us. Like you have a perspective that's different than mine. You were born and raised in an area that's different from me. You've got certain gifts and abilities that I don't have. And so all that, I believe, factors into what you were created to do. Because again, if it's that road, that means that you're going to affect certain people. You're going to work at a certain place that's going to be different than me. You're going to build certain things. You're going to have different ideas that are going to affect people because nothing exists for itself.
Correct.
In a different way than what I am.
You're right.
And so all of that, I believe, is a part of your purpose.
And and you're right. And I want to go back when you started talking about Jesus, because as you were saying that, I'm like, wow, I never kind of put it in the context of this discussion, but you're right. Jesus came for a purpose that's much broader and bigger than we realized. It wasn't just to die on the cross and to rise again. He came, to your point, how he lived, how he got to that point, how he lived was part of the purpose. Yeah. To show and be an example. Then dying on the cross and saving us from the penalty of our sin is one thing. But then when he came back, he spoke to over 500 people.
Still wasn't over.
And he was still in them and saying, hey, wait on the Holy Spirit. It's going to come. Hey, just wait. So when he died, he ushered in the Holy Spirit. That's part of the purpose.
Exactly.
When they got fed, it was like over thousands of people came to know Christ at that point in a whole different way.
And then, boom, you got this. So the purpose was not just this one piece. And the purpose is still being realized.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And it's interesting. You said something earlier that caught my ear where you were talking about your early years and how you wanted to impact, younger people. And the thing is, we learn best when we're teaching someone else because it forces us to kind of think about it in a way where, okay, I have to make sense of my own thoughts and I have to be able to articulate it to another person where they understand with the way they think.
It makes you get organized.
It makes you do everything. Like, so the thing is, when you help other people, specifically young people, find their purpose, that process is going to help you help yourself along the way. You can't, and it's funny because, we try to teach kids like, listen, take care of others, look out for your family, watch out for your little brother. And the thing is, the more that you try to look out for other people, God is going to always look out for you. You don't have to worry about yourself because you're focused on doing his work and you're looking out for others, his people. He going to always make sure you're taken care of. But you have to realize that. And I think the issue is, specifically in our community, a lot of our kids, they don't have all their core needs being satisfied. And if you don't have core needs being satisfied, all bets are off the table. Like if I couldn't breathe right now, podcast over. I gotta go.
I need air.
I gotta go find
EMS.
So that's essentially, that's a core need, right? We need that to live. Love is a core need. Compassion, knowing that you're secure. These are all core needs. So if a kid doesn't have core needs being satisfied, how can they ever just do the extra?
Yeah. So if man, it's because what you just laid out is what blocks us from realizing our purpose and working at it. Because when those core needs aren't there, how can you focus on your purpose?
It's difficult.
It's just like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
You flip it upside down.
Yeah, you pretty smart there, Martha.
I was thinking about core needs.
But go ahead and break it down, man.
So it was like and this is something that came from the world, and it's like used as like a standard way of thinking about how a person lives their life. And so like at the very top of it is like self-actualization. It's you're going after something because you have been freed of the basic needs and you're going after something that's bigger than yourself.
Right.
That's at the top of it, right? In the kingdom, seek ye first the kingdom and all these things, everything on that pyramid will be added unto you. And so that becomes the base level. God is going to make sure you have something to eat. God is going to make sure you got something to wear. And that's since that's taken care of. Now, what did I put you here for? Wake up every day and go do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's funny. I think it was in Matthew where what makes it clear, God, like he clothes the grass.
You give birds food to eat. They don't worry about anything. Like the point about don't worry. And now the thing is that God will take care of all that, but we all know, and I think, Mike and I talked about it before, we talked about it, these basic needs we talked about, and let's stick with kids in school for a minute. We've heard stories and people talk about kids can't focus on doing their homework because they don't have no food in their stomach.
Exactly.
They're getting teased because they're not able to get their clothes washed or whatever. All these different things get in the way of them realizing their purpose. And as we sit here and talk, it's like God can be there. He will be there. But sometimes that's where we talk about some of the things that we're doing and want to do, how we can intervene, how the church can help meet those needs that the world's not meeting.
Yeah. Because, so to your point, the reality is, and the reason why I tend to harp on kids so much is because kids are a product of the program, right? They're basically what their environment is filling them with. And if you haven't had a faith base introduced to you, it's very difficult for you to understand, like you said, well, don't worry about it. God's gonna provide. And you're like, man, I haven't eaten since yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you don't truly understand like how that can come to fruition because you're not being cared for, it almost like all bets are off. Like, I need to eat now.
Yeah.
And so you see situations where kids turn into teenagers, they end up doing extreme things, and we look like, man, he was a good kid. How could he go rob a store or something? But it's a product of a series of letdowns that usually, come to fruition in this form. And that's why, as you said, it's important that faith-based people come together and go back to that village mentality. And that's why I use words like, these are our kids. I'm not even talking about my kids specifically. I'm talking about our kids. We all got to band together because their parents may not be there for them.
Correct.
But we still have a responsibility to show them, no, listen, you do have a purpose. Some kids don't even know that. They've never been told that. They've never been told you have a purpose for your life. Something as simple as that. So how could you believe it if you've never even been told
Correct.
that? Some people, we were at the school yesterday volunteering, and principal came over and we kind of had this awkward, handshake. I'm like, come on, just get a hug. She was like, I needed a hug.
Let's see.
Roddy said, man, come on, I'll give you another. Because it was like, what? We just happened to show up. They have been dealing with our kids all day, stressed out. We don't know what type of, mess they've been into. And she was like, I just needed a hug. Like, we love seeing people that, men that are showing up that just care enough. And we want to make sure kids are getting to the buses safely.
Yep.
They see us and they react. Hey, what's up, Mr. Kim? What's up, Mr. Wright?
Now, this might be a subject for another episode, but that was actually something that I was thinking about the other day. I was sitting with my mom, and we were having a discussion because I guess my mom and my grandma, they go back and forth. My mom's mom, they go back and forth because my grandma, they're both believers, both Christians. We go to the same church.
Okay.
But one of them is pro-choice. The other one is pro-life.
Okay.
Now, as a believer, I would say no Christian really could be pro-choice because if everything that you need is taken care of by God, like the basic needs, then we all should have that village mentality in the first place. Love God, love your neighbor. So the kids should be taken care of. But I was telling her, like, when we were just talking about it, I'm like, that would cause a huge shift in the way society works as a whole for that to work. Because it would have to look more like the kingdom. It would have to.
Well, and the thing, and I'm not going to dive down that.
That's a slippery slope.
But I think it's worth mentioning this though, is that we know God is pro-life. Okay. And I believe the thing is more a moral and God decision that's being made. Because just like a person would pick up a gun and go shoot somebody, everybody could do that if they choose. The laws of the land sadly allow certain people to do certain things. Now that's not legal to go shoot somebody, but to carry a weapon is legal. But you expected to do it with the right mindset, right? And I think when people had that discussion, sometimes it's like, okay, well, what does the word say? You know, we need to follow the word. We are pro-life, meaning that we don't want to kill nobody. Now,
Should someone be policed on their choices?
that's the question you asked. Are you going to police everybody on their choices?
My mom was saying something.
Don't say who said what now. I don't want you to get in trouble. Don't say who said what. It's a mystery right now.
It's a mystery for me.
Who done it? We don't know.
We don't
I'll
know.
leave that alone there, 'cause it was hilarious what she had, because we were just going through like, okay, how could that actually work in society? And it was like, okay, there has to be a bigger emphasis on, one, there's a context for sex, the sex that's going to have a child. There's a context for it in the Bible, and it ain't just anybody that you see on the weekend. There's a certain environment that is supposed to be done in to actually produce a child that can be taken care of.
Yes.
Right. And so there would have to be some sort of enforcement to make sure that happens. And if you don't, or if we got the absentee father situation that we've talked about before, then what are the regulations that are going to cause them to start taking some responsibility?
Public service announcement, everybody. This is how you slide down that slippery slope. So so you are absolutely right. We need to say this for another topic, for another day. And actually, I would love for us to dive into this a little bit, because it is what I call, and I can't remember this one pastor said it, and I totally agree with him. It's like, you cannot legislate morality. So the purpose, if you want to have a child, you actually, that's your purpose. There's a right way to go down that road. To father, mother, you pray and hope that
Marriage is involved. That would be the intent.
you pray you work together so you can produce a child and have an environment that's healthy.
And okay, so one thing that I definitely want, because I was bringing it back. Don't worry, we weren't going too far off. Because in that, so the situation, we have the kid who makes it to life. Congratulations, big dog, you got a birthday. All right?
Yeah.
One thing that I noticed in the answers when I asked the students what was their definition of success, I could see very clearly that their answer to it had a lot to do with what kind of life they were living at that moment. Because the kid who mentioned, oh, well, success is, having food to eat, having some clothes to wear, being able to take care of yourself financially. I've seen that kid's life. I've seen that kid's parents. I know what situation they're in. And I could see why your thoughts line up to that as being successful in life. Because it's probably something that you haven't had.
Yeah.
And that was the same with the other students as well. And so one thing that I thought about a while ago is I call it the purpose equation, right? So all of these students who are in this class,
Is this a trademark Martell? Because we need to make sure it's trademark. This is Martell.
right,
Purpose equation, all right?
Purpose.
Don't bite off of it. All right?
Don't bite off of it. And this is what every time if I come into a conversation about purpose, this is like the one thing that I'm going to go back to. Just like we got Coach Mike in the process, the purpose equation is Martell.
I got you. All right.
Because it's a thing that, because again, going back to the doorknob, you were made for a reason. You were shaped for a reason. Everything, the things that make you, they factor into why you are here. And so the purpose equation, here it is. Okay, if you're taking notes, this is the time. It's strengths plus passion multiplied by action equals purpose. Okay?
All right.
What that means is your strength. God made you a certain way. He's given you certain gifts. There are certain things that when you try this, you just so happen to be better than other people. And it's like sometimes those things are like, it's so common to you, it comes so easily to you, you don't even realize that it's a struggle for somebody else. Those are the things that God put inside of you. And I was talking to my barber not too long ago. He was like, well, I asked him, like, what would you say your gifts? We had a long conversation out and we somehow got here. I'm like, what are your gifts? He said, I'm a gift. My gift is being a barber. I'm like, think about what a gift is. When you receive a gift, it's not because you earned it. When you get that gift, it was not because you did all these things, or it's not because you purchased it. It's something that's given to you free of charge.
Yes.
Think about what the gifts that God gives you. It is yours. Grace, it's yours. And so when I think about a gift, you have to make the distinction between what a skill is and a gift is.
Yes.
You build up a skill,
Right.
but you were given a gift.
Yes.
And so when you work on that gift, you can it's just the way that it was mapped out. When you work on that gift, you're able to do things at a higher level. And because that's the lane that you're supposed to be in. Then you get to the passion part. God doesn't. You ever try to do something that you don't like doing?
Oh, yes.
How hard is it?
It sucks.
It sucks. It sucks. And so I'm like, that's the natural next part. Because if God already put gifts in you and you're strong in these areas, and then you also have something that you're interested in doing, how easy will it be for you to put in the work? You're not thinking about it.
It don't feel like that. It don't feel like work.
I think that goes back to the school conversation, though. We put a lot of kids in situations that don't highlight and magnify their natural gifts.
Exactly.
And we say, if you can't memorize this study guide to take this test, then you're not smart, which is, to be honest, it's far from the truth. Like, it's so mind-boggling because there's actual data that shows the most successful people business-wise, if we're going to quantify success business-wise, they're not the best students.
Yeah.
They're usually, maybe C+, C+ type student because they do enough to where they show, okay, I can do it, but they also want to do things their way.
Yeah.
Yeah, not true. And I was joking earlier, but I do really think what you laid out, that process equation, you should write that down. Matter of fact, I'm going to write it down because I love the way you kind of pull that together. It's true. Those elements play a part in what you're saying too as well, Mike. And when we talk about purpose and productivity, and the two are hand in hand, but that equation, you said, yeah, they are. And we pull in some, like the kids in, which I think is so important because that lack of purpose, or somebody, I don't know who gave the example, how, you see these things, I think you were talking about it, and you think that this is success because of what you're seeing. And too often, then that becomes your purpose.
Because you see this as success, and that becomes, that's what I want. But that might not be for you. It might be too small for you, for what? But a lot of times we set our purpose based on what we see someone else getting, or, you know what I mean? Like,
Definitely.
And it's not us. We don't have a gift.
Yeah.
Per se.
And the first part of this topic, which I thought was a topic, I had to divert, but the staying in your lane portion. Once your gifts are revealed to you, double down on them.
Double down.
You can work to strengthen some of your other weaknesses, but always know your true gifts. Discernment, vision. It can be things like that aren't really tangible. Like if you can take a hammer and some nails and go build a shed, that's a tangible gift. But if you have the gift of discernment or vision, those are just as important, if not more. But they're not tangible. You can't touch it, feel it, but you know that you can see things differently than your peers.
Yeah. Yep.
I always go back to because we were in that film class, it's like, okay, I'm good at this, at creating this video, right? I'm good at video production. I know what to do with this camera. But the gift is that I see things differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see things differently.
Yeah.
And then, there's just a certain an organization when it comes to design that I've kind of always had. Like even as a kid, like I'm the one who is, they up there talking about something, I'm drawing a picture, and then or my desk will be just aligned in a certain way that just for some reason makes sense to me and is just aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
And that's just been the thing.
That staying in the lane thing is, I think, so important because it's so easy to get out of our lane.
Oh, definitely.
And I think that whole about the carpenter and talking about the gifts. So a carpenter who's good with the hammer, do whatever, they look at a situation like they say, okay, I want an insert for that wall. I mean, you in your business, you see it all the time. You might think in your head, this is what's needed to be done. But that carpenter look at there and he's like, or she, okay, I know what I need to do. So they visualize what they need to do. Then they go build it. But they got to see it first.
I have that vision.
And like when you talk about like videography, you're like, okay, yeah, I can get some cameras and so forth. And I've tried it, y'all, I don't do it well. But anyway, but the point though is that it might look good to me and you see it like, man, those cameras ain't too good. Here's the issue with it. Here's how you set the scene up. I mean, I was talking to you about B-roll stuff and you had to show me what it meant. I'm like, B-roll, what's that? It's like, but the point though is that it's an artistic point of it where it's like you can know what you're searching for already. Then you go out and you pull in the things that you need to do it. Whereas me being a novice, I would just go out and do it, not understanding what I'm trying to get as a result.
Like I learned this on YouTube.
Yeah.
They told me to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
And when we're talking about staying in our lane, I always think about that picture of, it was an Olympics one year with Michael Phelps and another guy. I don't even remember the other guy, but he was like, he couldn't beat him. He was always second or third place. And somebody snapped a picture. Michael Phelps is leading, of course, and he's just looking straight ahead. He's focused on what he's doing. In the very next lane, the guy is completely looking. He's just staring at Mike because that's his competition. He thinks it's Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps, he knows he's his own competition. I have to win myself, beat myself in order to be my best self. And I think that's the key to life. Like you don't have to compete with anybody else when you're in your lane. Nobody can be you better than you. Nobody, no matter what they do. That's why when it comes to information or explaining to people what you do, I can tell you 100 steps exactly the way I did it, and you can't repeat my specific process. And vice versa. You could tell me exactly how you do your thing with the cameras. I can't repeat it exactly like you would do it because you have the way you do it, I have the way I do it, Rodney has the way he does it. And we don't have each other gifts. It's like a fingerprint. It's unique to you. And that's the part where once you realize that, man, I feel like it's like a huge burden is just off your shoulders. Like I don't have to compete. You want to go get that cool, man, I encourage you. I'm cheering you on.
Yeah.
Because I know what's for you is for you and what's for me is for me.
Definitely. And I think that's definitely, so that's the third part. That's definitely the third part. That's within that action piece. Because like you were saying about Michael Phelps, it's like when you're actually in your lane, like when you're living within your purpose, you are doing the things that you were designed to do. And so there is no competition because no one else was put on the earth for the same reason that you were. Like there's not gonna be another Rodney, there's not gonna be another Mike, ever.
Yeah.
There's a reason for you being here at this specific time. Like in this time period of your life, there's a reason for it. You're here for a reason. Like there's things that you're supposed to do. There's people that you're supposed to talk to. I believe I'm in my purpose. So I believe I'm supposed to be talking to y'all. Like, this is intentional.
Exactly. No, go ahead, Mike.
Just one last, I didn't really want to touch on that subject because it's a sticky subject, but I do want to say this about just when we're talking about the pro-life, pro-choice conversation. We have to remind these kids that each of them have a purpose, whether someone, planned for them to be here or they're here. God made them and they have a purpose. We have to tell them and communicate and remind them because I think that's the thing. Like as faith-based people, we know and understand, listen, we will be provided for because we understand what the word says. But I also know for kids that don't grew up, and I mean, I myself, to be honest, that's why we were talking earlier. I'm like, hey, did you go to church every week? I didn't have that experience. So, not saying that we didn't have a faith base, like we believed in God, we had spiritual conversations, but I'm as an adult, I'm actually really diving into the word, and I'm having a great time. Like, I'm like, wow, this really is in the Bible.
Yeah.
But if you don't know, I see so many kids that they just don't know that they do have a purpose, man.
And I'm glad you going there, and I'm glad you talked about the word, because Jeremiah 29:11 came to my mind when you said that. I have plans for you, says the Lord, for good, not devastation. A plan for a hope and a future. And he does. You're absolutely right. I don't care what situation brought us into this universe. God was the one that allowed it, ordained it, and gave us a purpose in it.
Right.
And as we talk, and we said it a few times before, but just being totally clear, it's like God has given, like you said, each one of us a specific purpose, and that's staying in the lane piece, because it's so easy to, like you said, look over at the other lane and like, man, my man over there, he blowing it up, or she blowing it up. But it's like, hey, wait a minute, God put you in this lane right here, and you operate in that lane and that purpose, he gonna blow up what you doing. And you're gonna be productive.
People gonna start looking at you like that.
Yeah.
And it's like a switch has to get flipped in a mind, in a young mind.
Yeah.
Because you see it all.
Old mind too. Old mind
too sometimes.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
But I was like thinking of you just even in track. Same thing. If you're running your race and you're looking at the guy, and that automatically slows you down.
My man.
No matter if you came in first place, you're not as fast as you would have been, because you're looking at what that guy's doing. And if we just apply that to life, keep focused, go ahead, just put one foot in front of the other. Daily scoreboard, that's another one I tend to say a lot, but it's so true. Like, if you literally just compete with yourself daily, talk to God throughout the day, it's going to be easier and easier. I always tell people, like, 300 pounds in the weight room. It's always 300 pounds. Now, when you first step out to go lift that up, you might hurt yourself. But if you build yourself up and you stay consistent at it, you may be able to lift it pretty easily. The weight didn't change.
No.
What changed was you acclimated to the weight. And so now you're more effective, you're more efficient, and you can accomplish the goal a lot easier. So it feels different. But it actually really didn't change. It's just the way you feel about it.
It feels lighter to you.
Yeah, it feels easy. Like you was just saying, like your gift and your purpose.
Yeah.
After a while, but this is one thing I do want to say. I'm a firm believer that God does give you gifts that feel natural and easy to you, but you still have to put in work.
Action.
And that's the part where I think, God will provide. If it was meant for me to have, I'm gonna just sit here and God's gonna bring it to me. And it's like, that's different. It's like a lot of people do that though. I see a lot of people do that.
So let's sitting
on the couch.
They do. Now, I know
Not reading the word.
I know we been digging into this for a minute, but I think we got to get to that point where we kind of close it up. And like I said, Martell's our closer, if y'all didn't know that already. But he the closer. So Martell, you started us out. So how do we put a wrapper on this one?
Well, I mean, the common theme in everything that was spoken in this conversation is that, one, God made you for a reason. Understand
Everybody.
that. Everybody. Whether your mom told you was accident or not, you
for
here.
real.
Yes.
So there's a reason for it. God doesn't make mistakes.
Correct.
And because you are here, just know that there are certain things that he created you to do, and you're shaped to do it. Don't feel inadequate. Don't feel inadequate. Don't feel like, oh, well, I feel like I should be more like that person. No. He made you the way that you are to do what he called you to do, period. Understand that the way that you are shaped factors into that. Understand that there's certain gifts, there's a certain perspective, there's certain passions that you're going to have that's going to be different from somebody else, that's going to help you to be in your lane. You're not in competition with nobody. No. But there's also a purpose for you. But look, just like Mike said, you can't do what you were called to do without doing anything.
Action. No, you got to take some action.
Yeah.
You have to take some.
You got to push the limit. You can't just ease. too many people, you know, and I know we do got to wrap this up, but it's just heavy on my heart. Too many, oh, my bad, you're right. No, I'm going to say that for the next. No, you're right.
No, you good. Go ahead, Mike. We messing with
No,
you.
I'm just saying, like, too many people, they want to put their own limitations on things. Well, that's the limit. That's as much as is that really as much as you had? Because if you believe it is, then it is. But if you believe you got a little bit more, let's see. Let's try. You know, so that's a conversation that you got to learn to have with yourself. Let's try. Let's push it a little bit. Let's just see what happens. And you may be surprised. And then we'll close it on that.
We're going to follow up with that on the, we're going to have a conversation about that action piece. Let's dig into that a little bit.
All right. I think so.
But thank you for joining us for another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. We hope that you will join us next week. If you haven't already subscribe to the YouTube channel. And thank you for being here. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.